What is good, everybody? Welcome back to the pod, episode 5. I am your host, 2400Y2K. And man, is it fucking hot out there. So, recently I've been starting walking, right? I'm going on these little 2 hour long walks. And I've been noticing the heat, man. Like, I think today, what is it? It's like 80 where I'm at. It's like 80, which isn't even bad because I've been hearing in Cali it's gotten 112, Arizona 119. I mean, record-setting temperatures. And I think that I think something that has huge to do with that, and I know it's going to sound kind of corny and ridiculous now because the term has just been completely misconstrued and ruined, but I believe that it's climate change and heating up our earth that's doing a lot of this. Now, that's pretty obvious to a lot of people and not to some, but I think the common misconception is it's the general population that's contributing the most to pollution. Now, granted, it does help if everyone doesn't, litter. It does help if you do try to curb pollution. However, that's not what's putting all of these emissions in the air. That's not what's creating this carbon dioxide effect in the atmosphere. What's happening is these millionaires, billionaires, all these people with private jets, things like that, they take all these trips, right? And I've seen some ridiculous where it's like Kim Kardashian or someone, and they'll take a flight an hour away. You know what I mean? And that puts thousands of chemicals into the air. That completely is what's contributing to the global warming crisis. And yeah, man, I just it's shocking, it's sad. But real quick, I wanted to get into I know that was kind of fast, that was kind of a jump. But man, what do you even talk about, I'm out. Nothing here to care about. So I wanted to say real quick, I got a producer recently, and they printed me up some questions, and I always wanted to read them off real quick. Or not real quick. What I mean is, I wanted to read these questions because I thought these were pretty good questions for the pod. So, what inspired me most to start the podcast? Honestly, I've always wanted to be in media. I've always wanted to be in the mix, if that makes any sense. I wanted to be, whether it's actor, whether it's movie star, whether it's podcasting, whether it's music. I could go on and on, but as long as I'm in media, that's what I'm big on. That's what I'm happy with. I mean, I've even sat here with my dogs and thought about like movie scripts and stuff, and that's why I jokingly bring up Star Wars sometimes. I think I brought it up in a previous pod, is because I believe I could direct a better Star Wars than the last 3 films. I know I might get some backlash on that. I know some people, like those films, and that's okay. You can like what you like. But, I just think that, like, these last 3 films were pathetic. You know what I'm saying? These last 3 films were sad. And why they were sad is because I just didn't care. You know what I mean? And I grew up on Star Wars, and this might sound ridiculous, this might sound silly, but really I did. I grew up on Star Wars, and, that's what curved me from being, like, in a more negative way, because, I was kind of, I got some personal shit that goes on, and I got, my own demons, and when I saw Star Wars, like, I didn't want to be mean. I don't want to be that thug. I wanted to be Anakin. You know what I mean? I wanted to be the hero. I don't know. Something about Star Wars just kind of turned me off from the violent kind of more wild lifestyle. I don't know. I really wanted to be in that world. Like, I really made it real to myself. And so watching, those films being so important, not just the films, but like I'm sure y'all have heard of the popular series Star Wars, The Clone Wars, came out in 2008, I want to say. Had a good run. There's like a sequel-ish thing, Bad Batch. I recommend everyone go check that out. It's fire. It's like a continuation of the Clone Wars. But anyways, that also played a huge role in my life. And so for me to watch them like desecrate like something I'm so fond of it's really fucked up. Like I know it's just Star Wars and it's silly, and it is, but I'm human. I'm gonna take it some type of way because it's something I like. I fuck with Star Wars. That's my shit. I love the whole story, the plot, all the different little side stories. I love the comic books as a kid. I got all of the games. Like I'll never forget this. Right, one day, I don't even remember what year this is, but this is back when Battlefront 1 came out. Not the original on PSN or PS2 and Xbox. The original. Like, nah, the one that came out in like 2016-ish, I want to say. Only day I ever got to skip school without having like a sick excuse or something was that I literally sat there. And this might sound stupid, and like now that I'm telling the story, I sound kind of spoiled. But I sat there and I begged, and I was like, please, 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 please don't make me go to school. Like, I'll do anything. All I want to do is play Star Wars opening day, opening launch. Like, that's all I want to do. Hop on Star Wars, fucking get to be Darth Vader, do the little cool shit. And this was when the Frostbite engine came out. And if any of y'all know about the Frostbite engine, that was a big upgrade in graphics. That was really what took us from 360 graphics to our graphics that we have now, which a lot of games do have shit graphics. But EA, as fucked up as a company they are, and I have my whole own feelings and rant about that I've gone on in my own personal life, but EA does have good graphics. And so when this dropped, I was like, fuck it. I got to stay home. I got to play this. I got to go hard. And it's so funny now because it doesn't even really matter. The game didn't end up being that great. I never play it now, you know what I mean? It's kind of fucked up. But for just that day, like I'm just trying to iterate like how much I loved Star Wars. And like, only day I ever got to skip. I sat there and begged all night. Woke up, they're trying to make me go. I was like, please, please, please. I said, I'll go, but please. And, a little tears, a little red face. And so they finally just, were like, okay, well, then you can stay home. But, they weren't happy about it. They were pissed. But I got to stay home and play Battlefront for one day. I immediately got, sent right back to school next day, But I was good with that because I got to play Battlefront. But anyways, so why I want to talk about this is because, I don't know, I'm passionate about it. I fuck with Star Wars. I feel like I could direct a better one. And to see, like, them just basically copy and paste what they did for the original A New Hope story, like, to basically see the whole entire 3 movies almost, like, not identical. There's quite a few differences, but, like, just the main plot is kind of that same, kid comes from a desert planet, has no parents, wants to meet their parents, wants to know what their life was like, kind of has these thoughts of this romanticization of the stars, of traveling, of what it's like on other planets, right? Same plot, right? Rey and Luke Skywalker. Tell me the difference in that aspect. Both kids from a desert planet wanting to leave, stuck in a terrible, sad life that they don't really like, but they have to live because that's the circumstances they were given. Both Force sensitive, both essentially the chosen one. I mean, you know what I mean? And at the very end of the last movie, she changed her name to Rey Skywalker. So, you know what I mean? Comparison's pretty solid there. So that's where we start, right? It just pisses me off that a lot of that shit's copy and paste. Same with the Star Killer base. That's just fucking the Death Star, bro. Like, just call it what it is. That's just the Death Star. And so they have these fucking, I don't know, just convoluted ass, like they try to make it more interesting than it actually is, when it's like, really, the original did it better and did it cleaner. They didn't have to add all the bullshit to make it interesting. They didn't have to add a bunch of subplots that nobody gives a fuck about. Now, granted, there is good stuff about those films. Like, there is enjoyable. One is just like the graphically, like, the planets look beautiful. They look amazing. The planet design, even though, again, a lot of them are similar to places we've already seen, which, right, I understand how many places can you do, based off real life location type thing. However, with the technology we have nowadays, and with even, you look at 2000, when did Revenge of the Sith come out? 2005? You look at Revenge of the Sith planet like Mustafar, the lava planet that Obi-Wan and Anakin duke it out on. I mean, that's its own world. Like, that is so unique. That's so dope. And to think that 20 years later, they or whatever, I don't know when those movies came out, what was it, 15 years after, 10 years after, something like that, right? I don't understand why they can't do new things, or why we can't see a different planet, or like why can't they get their own shtick right? Because like they didn't do nothing different. We saw an ice planet, or I guess what, Starkiller Base isn't a planet, but you know what I mean? It was that ice type of vibe, same as Hoth. We saw I can't even remember her name. She's like the little weird alien with like big thick glasses that gives Rey her lightsaber. Another dumbass plot. But anyways, because she gets Luke's lightsaber, I want to say. But like, we saw him get that shit hacked off in Empire Strikes Back. His hand gets cut off, and like it's the one with the lightsaber, and that shit falls out the little weird ramp hole. And then that, I think her name's like Maz Katana or something. She gets the fucking hand or whatever, and like, or not the hand, but the fucking the saber, and it's like, how she was in like, it just fell like out of Cloud City, and you just happen to be passing by, or you know what I mean, shit like that, where it's like that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't really like I don't know, just let sleeping dogs lie, like let it be. You know what I mean? We concluded that story. Honestly, that's what pisses me off too, is we concluded the original trilogy. We concluded the prequel and original trilogy. That's the original story. You didn't have to continue that shit. I bet if you heard the Xbox notification. But you didn't have to continue that shit. You could have always just... Alright. Hold up. Alright, my bad. I'll be on Xbox. You know, any of the boys that be listening, I'm sure some of them, yeah, y'all know about that. Y'all, any of the dudes listening, y'all know about that. But anyways, so she has this fucking lightsaber, right? Which is already dumb. I don't know quite where I was at, but it doesn't matter. It's all the same type of vibe. I do not rock with this movie or the next two. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go into detail on those, because this is my big Star Wars breakdown, bro. Because let me tell you something, right? I am a fan of this fucking franchise, and I think I can make it better. Okay. Fan communities make things better in general. If you let the community lead something, it'll most likely be good. You know why? Because it's what the community wants. It's what the majority wants. And most of the time they do have good ideas, better ideas than these fucking executive and studio producers who are fucking dinosaurs and don't know what they're talking about. So like I don't know, just community-led projects. It's kind of like mods, you know what I mean? Mods for games. Why are mods so fun? Why are mods so good? Why do so many people want mods and use mods on PC and even on certain Xbox games? Because it's community-led. It's what the community wants. I understand AAA titles, to a certain extent. I understand AAA titles not being able to do fan service like that, just because they don't know what everyone wants, and to put all the time and resources into something that nobody wants. You know, to them it's a money game too. So it's like nobody. But when you let the community have freedom and do things like that, they can get like I was playing Arma the other day, Arma Reforger, and I know this is another side rant. I'll remember the Star Wars thing because that's locked in. But I was playing Arma the other day, and like we joined this one server, and we had to install a bunch of mods, and it's just shit like the Abrams tank, an ACOG, just certain stuff that they let the community do. They let the community fuck around with. They let the community put in there because it's what the community wants, right? They have their base game, they have their base products, they have their base, but then you let the community branch off because it makes it better. It's only going to make the product better. It's only going to make the game, movie, or whatever it is better, because it's at the end of the day, it's the community what keeps the thing alive, right? Like, if nobody was buying Star Wars, if nobody gave a fuck about Star Wars, they wouldn't make it. They wouldn't produce it. It's the community that keeps it alive. But this is the same community that, in my view, you're harming, because you're making shit they don't like. You're trying to appeal to a certain audience. You're trying to, in my opinion, at least with those last Star Wars movies, you're trying to capitalize on something that's already been done. You're trying to recreate that original Star Wars magic, and I think that's horseshit. I think that what made Star Wars originally so special is its originality, is its own unique story, and it's its own unique kind of vibe. And you can do that with the franchise with that's already established. It's not like Star Wars obviously wasn't a thing before George Lucas made it, but after he made it, that doesn't mean you can't have a same or similar impact. It is one of the biggest, most recognizable things on the planet, Star Wars. I mean, you could go to some village in the middle of fuck nowhere, and if you say Star Wars, I mean, they're gonna know or have some sort of idea, lightsabers, pew pew, whatever they may think, spaceships. And so I think that the direction that they took these last films was just shitty, because it's not doing fan service. It's not. And it's like, I don't know, with everything new that they put out, I'm not really a fan of it. I watched Obi-Wan. It was decent. It was way better than Book of Boba. Let me tell you, Book of Boba was the biggest disappointment I've ever fucking watched in my entire life. Like, I sat there and I watched Book of Boba, and I was like, I remember being a kid. Like, this is no fucking joke. I remember being a kid looking up those things like Obi-Wan movie, Darth Vader movie, Boba Fett movie, right? And you'd see little fake spoilers or be like, oh yeah, they're gonna make they have a Boba Fett movie in the works, comes out in 2025, whatever. I remember looking at all that stuff, and like, I had my own idea for these films, for an Obi-Wan film, for a Boba Fett film, and they didn't end up even being movies. They ended up being shows, which I think was, again, it's the money route. It's you're not doing fan service. You put out something for a profit, and you put it out because a show is lower quality than a movie. I mean, even your most high quality TV show doesn't look like a movie. If anyone knows what I'm saying by that, like, gets what I mean, like, you get what I mean. Like, TV shows just don't look like like, to a certain extent they do, but you can tell. And that's what Disney did with Boba Fett, and which I was very upset about. I think you could have made a wicked ass movie about his time right after the fall of the Republic, because that's really the most interesting time, at least in my opinion, for a lot of characters. If you wanted to continue that story, or if you wanted to make those origins, like Obi-Wan is just similar to that. It's right after Order 66. He's going through, kind of becoming who he is in the later film, or the New Hope. And then you look at, like, I don't know, you look at Book of Boba, it's not like that. It's set after Return of the Jedi, granted, right? But I think it would have been better to make one of his origin story, right? How he got his armor, kind of what happened to him after the Clone Wars, especially since he's a clone, but not part of the clone army. How do people view him? What is life like for Boba Fett? Because he's a clone, but he's not a clone, you know what I mean? And when people see him, they probably think Republic, military, clone troopers, and especially being in the underworld, how does that pass over? It's kind of like being labeled a cop in like a biker gang or something. When you're in that world and you have the label of cop, because clones are military, right? Any person in the galaxy who's seen a clone at that point, besides very few, they're military agents, you know what I mean? And so when you see this guy and you're like, whoa, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing of like, how are they going to view him? How are they going to view him, like, now that the Republic's fallen and the clones are phasing out? And, it's kind of like he's fucked on all sides, because he's not friends with the Republic. He hates them. He fucking blew up a Venator. Like, you know what I mean? He's insane. He's not wanted by them, and he doesn't want to go with them. But the underworld, at first, I don't know too much about his origins, and I'll have to read up. But I'd imagine the underworld at first was kind of weary and sketchy of him, because it's essentially like looking like a Fed. He looks exactly like a military officer. And so, you know what I mean? He puts on all this garb, but his face, I mean, when the clones are known for one thing, and that they literally aren't allowed to have separate lives outside of the military, how do people kind of view him, That's my 2 cents on the Boba Fett thing is wow. I mean, not even my 2 cents. That's my idea for like a Boba Fett movie. My 2 cents on the show is it's dog shit. It's boring. I don't care. they did some, like, I don't know how to word this right, but they did like one of those weird stories of like, oh, Boba Fett is after the Sarlacc, this tribe of Tusken Raiders comes and they pick him up, and he's a prisoner at first, but then he bonds with them, and he starts to teach them things and teach them how to use technology like speeder bikes, and you know what I mean? Do you kind of get where I'm going with this story? Like, I don't want to put it blatantly out there to sound crazy, but just tell me if you've heard this story before or something similar of a man not from this group of people who probably would have died on his own gets picked up by these group of people as a prisoner initially, but then makes a bond with them, even though he's not part of their race. I mean, they're Tusken Raiders. He's human. They're quite literally not a part of their like species. And so, but they still take him under his wing. And then he shows them his knowledge of the more modern world. See where I'm kind of going? You see where this is kind of, he gives them knowledge of the more modern world of blasters, like advanced blasters, speeder bikes. And I guess, like, it's pretty blatant towards the end of this little arc that he has, but all like, what do they decide to do, or what's happening is there's a train that runs through their land, right? There's a train that runs through their land, and they don't like the train. They got to stop the train, and it also has goods on it. So what do? They fucking rob the train on speeder bikes and whatever, and like, you know what I'm saying? It's basically an old western. But like not one of those cool old western, like a really creepy, uncomfortable story of exploitation of the natives of the planet. You see what I mean? How I'm saying how that's kind of, because at the end of this, right, they rob the train, which is Boba Fett's idea, right? It is the foreign man's idea to take this train robbery, right? So they go fucking rob this train, and there's repercussions, kind of like another, you know what I mean? So there's repercussions. The train that they rob belongs to these like higher up banker type dudes, I think, something like that. Somebody with money. I think it's the Pikes. Even if they're a criminal syndicate, it's about money at the end of the day is what it is. So the train gets robbed. They're pissed. So what do? They send people. They send their raiders on their fancy brand new speeder bikes and their lasers and everything like that and whatnot, and their brand new equipment, and they send them in and they kill everybody in the village and they burn it. I can't remember where Boba is at the time. I want to say he is on his own little journey when that happens, because I remember he gets back to the camp and he sees it and he flips shit or whatever. But you see where I mean? It's like I don't see what that has to do with Boba Fett. And they made him kind of a good guy, which, I wouldn't even say okay, because there's not enough time had passed between Revenge of the Sith and when he gets out of the Sarlacc for it to be like that. You know what I mean? In Return of the Jedi. In Return of the Jedi, he's still a bad guy. You know what I mean? He's still working for Jabba the Hutt. He's still trying to kill our main cast of heroes. He's still a bad guy, and he's all doing it for bread. You know what I mean? He's doing it for money. He has no quarrels or qualms about killing these people, even though they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to help the rebellion there. And, if they, I don't know, it's something about that uniqueness, that interesting story of Star Wars about how, this group is essentially, the good guys. They're trying to stop the Galactic Empire and their outreach and their tyranny and their villainy, and despite that, there's still these factions that are in their way, because much like real life, it's about ends meet at the end of the day. I could give a fuck about, you know what I mean? I'll use a real life comparison for a lot of people. I could give a fuck about government or politics or what's going on in the greater scheme or what's going on in DC. I could give a fuck about that. I got to make, what about rent this month? What about What about my relatives that's in jail? What about this? What about the house caught on fire? You know what I mean? You're worried about the survival. You're worried about your own life. You know, you're not stuck. You're not sucked out into this huge bubble of the huge things that change our world. You know what I mean? You're in your own little bubble of your own personal life and what goes on in your personal life, and you know, rightfully so. But I think there has to be a healthy balance. Again, that's one lesson I hope, or not lesson, but that's one thing I hope to talk about on this pod too, is balance. Balance is huge to me. Balance literally to me is the key to a perfect life, the key to existence. That is the answer, is balance. I don't know. I'll try to go in depth more so in another episode, but really I'm serious. Balance. You know, they say there's always too much of a good thing, or whatever the saying is, like, and that's true. Like, you have to balance. Nothing is good or bad. Nothing is evil. It's just balanced. You know, I don't know how to explain it. I'll do more research on that, but I do have my own theory and my own personal beliefs and how I feel about that. About if you're able to keep balance in your life. You know, balance I'll use this as like the topic I'm talking about right now. If you're able to keep that balance of worry about the real world, worry about politics and government, because those are the big things that will affect you and affect you in the long run. Voting, laws, bills, you know, like Roe v. Wade just got overturned, things like that. A lot of people didn't even bat an eye, but it does matter to a lot of people. You know what I mean? So you got to have that balance of worry about politics, but you can't put all of that ahead of your own life. You have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to have a decent life, a decent job, a decent, you know what I mean, to maintain. I think that maintaining that balance, and that's with everything in life, working out, eating, just keeping your mental good. Have that balance. You're allowed to feel sad, but don't let that take over too much, and don't ride the highs too long, because that's how you get in fucked up depressions. Have balance. Anyways, back to Star Wars. Where was I? Boba Fett, robbed the train. Robbed a train. Worried about life. Mundane things on. Anyways, I'll get back to the train thing. I don't know really where I was going with the other, but so with the train heist or whatever, they pull this fucking train heist, right? And so then these I'm starting to get it too, I think. It's just basically none of this is in Boba Fett's character anyways. So they make him a good guy, which it doesn't make very much sense considering he was a bad guy in the other films. And he never gives off that vibe of warrior class that he gives, or like this almost stoic being, this hero figure that, you know, once that happens to the Tuskens, he goes and gets their get back or whatever, I think, and he kills some people, you know, makes a show of it. But the point is that's not really in his character, you know. And that's me personally, you know, people might feel different. The own creator of Boba Fett might feel different. You know, George Lucas might feel different. But I really don't feel that's in his character, especially because he's not his dad either. For his dad, it might be a little more believable, Jango, because he comes from Mandalore. He knows, you know, the culture, the ways. He, you know, that warrior class, they're kind of more respectful. They're more, it's a warrior class of people, the Mandalorians. Boba Fett didn't really get that. You might say, oh, well, yeah, he grew up with Jango. In a way, but how old was he when Jango died? 8? 10? You know what I mean? He was still a kid when Jango was killed, so he never got those same type of lessons, and he wasn't from Mandalore. He didn't go to Mandalore. He was a clone trooper from Kamino, or a clone from Kamino, and he doesn't, even though he has the same DNA, he didn't have the same upbringing, he didn't have the same mindset. And so that's why I believe Boba Fett is more so evil than Jango. And when you look at it, both bounty hunters, but I think Boba Fett would be a little bit more loose on the morals, a little bit more trigger happy, a little bit more with the torture. That's why he hangs around people like Bosk. And what's the lady he hangs, Aura Singh, I think. Like all these different little bounty hunters and different kind of grimy, more sketchy, violent, your sort of more standard type villain characters. I think that, there's a reason he went with those type of people is because that's who, that's kind of his friends, his ideals, his kind of group is this more grimy crime syndicate kind of guy. Because if you look at Django, when he was doing his stuff, he didn't have partners. He wasn't part of a syndicate. Yeah, people knew who he was. He wasn't moving like Boba. And for that reason, I think that, he shouldn't be this stoic type warrior. He should be a little more grimy, a little more dingy, the kind of guy that was hanging with Bosk, who loves murder, who loves to kill Wookiees, who loves, just being a bad guy kind of. And to go from that to a savior of the Tusken Raiders, and it affected him so deeply, and he walks in this kind of cloak with a stick, and you know what I mean? Just like this whole weird arc that he's like kind of like a good guy, kind of like a more Gandalf-like figure. I don't rock with that. I just don't see that being Boba Fett. I don't. And so that's what I mean, where the direction they've taken, sorry about that. But anyways, where was I? Sorry about that. I don't know if y'all can hear in the background, but all right, we're good. Sorry about that. So essentially, what the Boba Fett thing, or just the direction of Star Wars and Disney in general, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I think they're doing things that, like I said, they're trying to make a profit. It's more about a profit more so than anything else, and I think that the direction they're taking things is not in the sorry about that. I'm kind of fumbling over my words, but I don't believe that it's for the fans. I don't believe it's fan service. I don't believe that they're doing what they need to do for the actual people who care and like Star Wars. Because like I just described the show Boba Fett, complete disappointment. I mean, I was ready for some badass action adventure of how he became, or even after what he's like, kind of a cynical, I thought he'd be even more angry. He got put in the Sarlacc pit, I thought maybe it's a revenge tale and he goes to get revenge on Luke and all them, and he figures out that they won the war. They're pristine generals now, and maybe he's got to either give that plot up or that's how he grows as a person. Not him coming out of the Sarlacc pit and just automatically being this stoic kind of warrior-esque person, and I just don't agree with any of that. Similar to what they did with the other films, the way that kind of did Luke. That's what I was thinking about real quick. The way they did Luke was completely wrong in my opinion, because the way they make him seem in what is it called? The sequel trilogy, right? Not the prequels. Prequels is before. So the sequels, the way they make him seem is just not, it's not how Luke would act. Similar to how Boba Fett's not like that. I don't believe Luke was like that. He went through this whole journey, kind of I don't want to put it in that big of light, but kind of like a holy type journey. You know what I mean? The whole story of Luke, Anakin and Luke, and that whole, the 6 movies, it's like a Greek opera. I mean, it's a whole ups and downs, highs and lows. I mean, it's so interesting, and like if you put that on a play, on a theater for Shakespeare, I think he would have been in tears. I think that Star Wars as a story is beautiful, and like if it was in any other era as like a play, especially written more well worded and without things like just the way the kind of modern acting scene is in movies, it's a little less professional than back in Shakespearean days of plays and things like that. So I think that the original story for Star Wars is this kind of more beautiful journey about, a father who goes astray, who tried his best he tried so hard to make everything right that was his ultimate downfall. And there's a lot of lessons from Star Wars that are low-key, like, that can blend into your very real life, that, like the whole dark side thing, hate leads to anger leads to pain, and pain leads to suffering. That's very real. Take the dark side out, and just say that alone. I mean, if you're a hateful person, then you're angry. And if you're angry, you're in pain. And if you're in pain, you're suffering. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative people in today's world alone. A lot of people who, you see a lot of negativity, just people hating on people. People see homeless people and they're angry at them. People see people doing bad and they hate it. People see people doing good. People are just angry and hateful and kind of upset nowadays. And I believe that you take a lesson from Star Wars that, it's not that you have to be happy all the time. It's not that you're going to be at peace all the time. But you have to recognize these things. You have to say to yourself, the quicker you confront it, not the quicker, but, you can't waste your whole life not confronting something, because it's going to eat at you. It's going to make you hateful. It's going to make you angry. It's going to bring pain, and it's going to bring suffering. And so there's a little snippet on that. That's how I feel about that is Star Wars has, a lot of life lessons, and I don't know if y'all heard that. Someone dropped something in my house, so it's a little loud, but essentially there is lessons. Like I'll try to go into it more in depth on some other episodes. Again, like I said, kind of new at this, kind of fresh at this. I just got back into it. Like I don't know if I'll keep it in or not, but I was gone for 2 weeks dealing with my own kind of personal stuff. Kind of fucked up. Thought about not even doing the pod, but I love this. It is really fun. It just takes me a second to get into my groove, and especially just to get to recording. That's the kind of person I am. Is I don't go unless there's a fire under my ass. So, I'll sit here and I'll let the microphone and let everything sit here, and not do anything about it, and just kind of look at it. And I've lately been learning to kind of put that own fire under my ass. I have to, because no one's gonna do it for you. I mean, there are people in your life who will, here and there, throughout different periods, but no one's usually there forever. And self-reliance is a big key to life. Just like I said earlier, balance. You have to have self-reliance, but you can't have so much self-reliance you isolate yourself. You cut yourself off from people. You don't let yourself build connections. You don't have a girlfriend. You don't have a wife. You don't have, and not that you have to have any of those things, a boyfriend, any of that, but you know what I mean? To completely isolate yourself is dangerous. Like I said, anything that's not in moderation, or anything that you take to the extreme, is not healthy for you. And I'll die on that hill. Anything. I don't care if it's a good thing. Anything. And I don't think there's one thing you can prove me wrong. Sleep, working out, anything where it's good for you in copious amounts. Same with isolation. It's not good to be isolated all the time. And it's not good to be out all the time and be social and drain your social battery all the time. It's a big game of balance. And yeah, that's how I feel about that. I don't know where I was, but it's just I'll go back to Star Wars real quick. Every time I lose my train of thought, I'll go back to Star Wars. But so just the way they did Luke, so it's this kind of tale of Luke and. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to catch up where I was. So it's this tale of Luke, so it's kind of this whole opera type thing, right? Beautiful story. And Luke goes on a journey. And like I was saying, it's, Anakin is the original. It starts out with Anakin, the father and son story. And so it's kind of Anakin goes, through his own journey, and he, there we go, I'm getting back to it. So he he cares so deeply about everyone. He wants to save everyone so hard, and he gets this. That's ultimately the demise, because he's doing too much. He, like, truly, in the truest sense of the word, he is doing too much. And so, I am so sorry. There's background noise, and it's kind of getting to me. Trying not to lose my train of thought, but I apologize if I do. There is background noise. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but even if you can't, like, it's distracting me, so I apologize. But it's this kind of story of right, so he loses everything, and Luke, here's the cool thing I like about it. Luke essentially is set up for this kind of, once he figures out who his father is, it's kind of alluding to the possibility that, like, this could be his path as well. You know what I mean? Like, again, like real life, you can take a lot of lessons from these movies. It's no joke. Like real life, the cycle of abuse and trauma. When you come from, abuse or something like that, oftentimes it's a big crossroads, I'll say. That's how I'll describe it. Big crossroads. Because you can either take that path and recreate that abuse and recreate that power dynamic that happened to you, except this time you have the power, or you can change, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying either of those are easy things, but those are really the two paths of people who've been through things like that. You can recreate it, or you can be bigger than that. You can move, you can be different. You can be different. You don't have to continue that cycle, but it is very hard and especially ingrained. And so that's kind of what happens to Luke is he hears about his dad being this dark lord, this Sith, this mass murderer, the right hand to the Palpatine, the true enforcer. You know what I mean? When you think of, that universe's, that world's, evil guy, like that's who you conjure up images. Not so much Palpatine, you think more so Vader. And he kind of goes through this dilemma of he's scared that's what he'll become. That's really, he's scared that's what he'll become. By Empire Strikes Back, that's kind of what that movie's about. Is Luke figuring himself out, and after he gets news that that's his father, he really has to figure himself out, because before that he has a premonition with Yoda, or not a premonition, but he goes into the dark forest and he fights Vader and he decapitates him, and the mask comes off and it's him under the helmet. It's Luke, and he's kind of horrified or whatever, gets out of there. But essentially what that is like, it's Luke being afraid to recreate that cycle of being Vader himself, of being so caught up in destroying evil and destroying his father and destroying Vader, that he himself would become that very evil. You know what I mean? Which often happens, which essentially is what happened to Anakin in his story. Is he wanted to stop death. He wanted to, nothing bad to happen. He wanted to make sure and ensure that his family and the ones close to him, they would be safe. And he did that at such a cost that he became the very thing he didn't want to become. He became the very, like, it's literally the Obi-Wan quote. You became the very thing you were supposed to destroy. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. But because of how deeply involved, how deeply he cared, and how much he did too much, he ultimately falls to the dark side and does do all these evil things. And so that's what Luke's afraid of. And he overcomes this. By the end of Return of the Jedi, he figures out what kind of man he is. There's a lot of off-screen stuff you don't see from Empire to Return. But you know what I mean? You get a sense, and he's kind of more grown. He's not such a scared teenage boy anymore. He's a man now. He talks like a man. He kind of carries himself like a man. When he comes to talk to Jabba, he carries himself more so like a Jedi than a Padawan. And by the end of this journey, he has the choice to kill his father. And essentially, you don't think it would be that serious, but if you watch the first 3 Star Wars movies, you know how quick it can go, and that's kind of like real life as well. And you know, he ultimately has the choice to either kill his father, attempt to kill Palpatine, which there's debate if he would have won. Even if he does, arguably, all that scars him, all that traumatizes him, and ultimately probably turns him into a worse dictator, a more evil person, someone who wants to take so much control and so much power to make nothing ever evil happen again, that they start doing things like taking away rights, because that's kind of how that happens, even in the real world. It starts with good intentions. You start these police forces, you start these secret services, you start it all with good intentions. But the problem is you want to keep society so safe, you start to take away freedoms, you start to take away people's rights, you start to make people enslaved a lot of the times in order for you to, in essence, quell a lot of that evil or crime. Because you look at places like Nazi Germany, you look at places that in the past have had secret police forces and things like that. Yeah, the crime rate usually, plummets. Especially it has to do with people's happiness as well. But that's another thing. But at the same cost, you have to take away these people's freedoms. You have to take away their rights. You know what I mean? You have to become the very evil that you supposedly were trying to stop. And that's kind of what, Luke's headed. But he ultimately makes the choice that he would rather die. He would rather die in front of his father than kill him and become the very evil. He'd rather die a martyr, so to speak. And Vader, has a change of heart. This is, the moment he changes really back into Anakin for a little bit. Throws Palpatine overboard. Luke takes him onto the ship, burns his body on Endor, gets closure, sees his Force Ghost, kind of becomes, that's the end of the story. That's Luke. He grew. He went from a boy, a moisture farmer on Tatooine who did, kind of mundane, just like every other person, right? And he grew, found out who he was, grew, had the option to become something evil, chose the bigger option. And it's kind of his whole journey of from boy who knows nothing to the chosen one meant to lead this new government, essentially. Right. Then we get to fucking Rey Skywalker, and see, I don't even remember the names of the movies. What is it? The Rise of Skywalker. I don't even know. I was about to say A New Hope. Funny enough, but so we get to the movie with Luke in it, and I think it's Rise of Skywalker. So we get to that fucking movie, and Luke is not even close to any sort of resemblance of the man we met on the original journey. And that makes me fucking furious, because he's not the guy that... So let me if you haven't seen the movie, let me just give you a little bit of what new Luke is like, right? So he's completely ass backwards, right? He completely gives up his role in the government, right? He I'm pretty sure that's how it is, right? Even if I'm not completely accurate, I don't care. I'm close enough. So Luke essentially is this. He steps down from the government, starts this teaching school for Jedi, right? Essentially, he's the new Master Yoda. Essentially making the new Jedi Order. And that in itself is debatable on if he would do that, of if he'd have that responsibility, of if he'd even want to do a school. Luke never seemed like a school type of kid. Even before his journey, I don't see Luke being that kid that's super hyped about school. You know what I mean? He's kind of more rebellious. He's kind of more... George made this in the 70s. This was kind of the rebellious era. This is right after Nam. This is kind of kids like that who are, what's that movie? Oh, fuck. Not Breakfast Club, but it's another movie about like these 70s teen stoners at this school. And it gives me the same kind of vibe that Luke does. But no, he fucking... So he starts this, this school. He starts teaching people the Force, whatever. And one of his students is Leia and Han's kid, Ben, his nephew. Right? So Ben's there, he's learning, his name is Luke or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then one night, I think Luke gets a premonition or a vision that Ben's going to be bad, that Ben's going to do bad stuff. And he's always kind of had this feeling that Ben's a Sith, or not a Sith, but more so on the dark side, more evil. And so what does Luke do? This is the same man that was going to sacrifice his own life for his father's. What does he do? He waits till Ben is sleeping, walks into Ben's room, lightsaber in hand, ignites said saber, stares down on him, and right as he's about to hack his little, I think he was like 12 or something, right as he's about to hack his child brain, I think Ben hits him with a force push or whatever and ends up destroying the whole facility and killing a whole bunch of people, and then Luke ends up shutting down the whole thing and goes into hiding. And like, even that as its own thing, it's like, Luke wouldn't do that. Luke would own up to his shit. This was the same guy that face to face the Emperor. This is Justice himself. This is Mr. Good Guy. You know what I mean? And now, like, when it's time to take responsibility because let's just ignore, like, let's put a real life spin on it. Like, how are you going to have a school full of students, right? These are people's kids, right? People probably sent their kids. This isn't like the old Jedi Order where they're kidnapping babies, right? They're probably sending their kids here because they're force sensitive. And they all are killed and murdered mysteriously. The murderer gets away. And the teacher who owns the school, who lets your children stay there, who is the supervisor of all this, who essentially lets your kids get murdered, he's gone. He's nowhere to be found. He goes missing. He goes into hiding. Like, I shouldn't even have to explain how ridiculous that shit is. I mean, it's that shit baffles. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the same guy that was so anti, like, Empire, that was Mr. Rebellious, that wouldn't even kill his own father. I mean, who did bad shit to him, who abandoned him, who was arguably the most evil guy in the world, or galaxy. And you're telling me this is the same guy? Like, this guy completely does a 180. He's willing to kill his own family members, not even an older one, a younger one, a child. He's willing to do that. And when responsibility and flack comes back on him, and he should be there, he should be consoling these people, he should be apologizing, he should be explaining, and he should be looking for his nephew to not imprison him, not to kill him like you were originally going to do, but to talk to him, to figure him out, to steer him clear of this path. Because that's what you should do in real life as well. If you see someone headed down a dark path, especially your own child, nephew, someone you're mentoring, rather than attempt to kill them or cast them out, you should talk to them. Because a lot of people in society, that's all they need, is just to be talked to, and they wouldn't be such, I wouldn't even say bad people. Because not all criminals, not all people, like, they're not all bad people. I think a lot of people who don't conform, a lot of people who are different in society, are cast out instead of integrated and having a conversation. I mean, these could be wonderful, valuable members of society, but I think a lot of people are cast out. A lot of people are set to the side, especially if you're different. If you're a little too loud, if you're a little too different, you talk a little too much, you stare a little too much, you're a little too big. You know what I mean? If you don't fit society's norms, if you're not cool to society, then you're cast out. You're a weirdo. You're a freak. You're whatever they label you. And not because you did anything, not because you're a bad person, not because you did any actual single action to these people or in front of them, or, you know what I mean, even interacted with these people, but simply because you're different. That was a little side note. That was a little tangent on that, but I'm reading this book lately called Conform or Be Cast Out. I'm not sponsored or nothing. It's just a book I've been reading, and essentially it talks about that, how, you know, it's why society's real negative today. Not completely why, but it's one of the main contributing factors to why society is so negative, is the fact that if you're different, you're cast out. And this comes from a more primitive time of survival, and of, if it's different, it's dangerous. You know what I mean? If this is thousands of years ago, and we're out there foraging and scavenging, and we see a different species of, like, you see Neanderthals, you know what I mean? It's not, they're different, and we see that. And back then it's for safety purposes, because they could be a threat. They could hurt me. You know what I mean? Different is dangerous. If I'm out there gathering and I see a mountain lion, or saber tooth, whatever era this is, and it looks different, it's dangerous. I should stay away. I should keep it away from the community because it's dangerous. But that bled over into our everyday life, and it really wasn't that bad, I don't think, until the era of kind of TV media, and we really weaponized that different is dangerous mentality. And especially look in the modern era, Fox News, CNN, all of them, Democratic, Republican, they all have bias, and they all show you the opposite side of the fence, and they're different and they're dangerous. You know what I mean? Not even just each other, but like people in society who, like the war on terror started a big thing of watch your neighbor and who's going to strike next. And we started profiling Muslims and Middle Easterners coming here, and people from here who were Americans born and raised, but had Middle Eastern heritage, had Middle Eastern grandparents, parents, whatever it may be. We kind of created this enemy, this idea that they're different, they're dangerous. We do it with religion all the time. Different religions scare people. I've never seen that so prevalently in humans, that fear of something different than in religion. People are so scared to experience and think about and feel and even consider other religions. It's baffling to me, because it's just because it's different, it doesn't mean it's dangerous. It doesn't make it any more real than your God, if that makes any sense. I think a lot of people get scared of that. They're so scared to experience other religions because they think it compromises their God or makes their God less real, or, like in certain texts it calls it blasphemy and heresy to read other religious texts or even consider them. But I really don't think it's that way. I really don't. I think the more you expose, you can't harm yourself by exposing yourself to more knowledge. I mean, you know what I mean? It couldn't hurt to know more about different religions, about different people. We might think it will, and we all consider our own religions and the afterlife. I think a lot in that. I think that plays a big factor. But the real thing is, what if that there's no guarantee of what's going to happen. So why live your life based on something you don't know that's going to happen? Because if you lived your entire life for this thing and it was all for nothing, and maybe that's how you were happy, and that's okay too. But I think to be afraid of religion, to be afraid of people who are different, of everything, religion, education, culture, to be afraid of different is harming us in a big way. Because different isn't dangerous. And anyways, that was kind of a big rant. That was kind of a serious more topic. So for Star Wars, but those are little things I pick on from it. But anyways, back to how they massacred my boy is just essentially the way they did it. The way they did a 180 on Luke and made him seem like sorry, I'm logging into my computer real quick. But the way they made him seem like he was just ready to kill, and the way he tried to murder his nephew as a solution rather than talking it out, when he was willing to talk to his father, who was arguably the most evil. You know what I mean? Had done way more evil than Ben did. I just think that's fucked up. It's the way that they do that, and the way that they didn't care, and the way they did the character it's abysmal. So yeah, I mean I'm gonna call it here because we just hit an hour, and yeah, so I'm gonna call it here for now. But I want to say I want to get into this again. I'll re-listen to this one before I record the next one. So please give me feedback, likes, comments, anything, because I'm gonna, like, this might be a part 2, if that makes any sense. I know it's not technically a part 1 of anything. This is episode 5 of the pod. But what I mean by that is I'm really in depth in this. I'm really feeling this. I feel like it's a topic that I can go on about for quite a while, and there's different places I can branch off. And I want to know if you guys want a part 2 on this kind of Star Wars kind of life thing. I don't know what you'd call it, because originally that's what it was about Star Wars, but I kind of threw some little lessons in there, things I've learned and things like that. So let me know if you guys want an episode 2 kind of Star Wars related, or if I should just completely go for a different topic, go for something different. But I feel like I feel like I'm doing really good with this one, so I want you guys to let me know. Like I said, I really enjoy doing this. This is my passion. I love this. I'm just gonna go further and further. Sorry, I took a while off. Had to figure out some life things. Had to figure out my own personal life. Had to get the motivation. Like I said, I don't know if it's in the pod still, but I'm the kind of guy that needs a fire under my ass, and I'll do it. And I've kind of had to learn to do that myself and on my own. So that's where I'm at with this. Is I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep doing them. Even though some days I don't feel like it. Some days I just want to not do it. Some days, even today, I didn't really want to. But I just got to get flowing, and it works, and it's good, and I like it, and I appreciate y'all, and I appreciate all the support from every single one of y'all. Even if you only listen to my shit for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you know what I mean? I appreciate you guys. I thank you guys, and I'll see y'all in the next episode, hopefully. Again, I got to go back through. I'll listen to some of the other episodes, too, to kind of get a sense of what to talk about, to kind of get a sense if there's anything I want to pick back up on. But again, all the feedback helps. I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate every single one of all my viewers, anybody who even looks at this for 10 minutes. Thanks to all my boys who listen to this. I got a couple of y'all telling me y'all heard it, or y'all threw it in the background or whatever. Fucking appreciate it, dogs. Like, really, that's what I do this for. Like, for you guys to see my progress, or like even just listen to my shit. Like, that's huge. I never imagined I'd even get it this far, but I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that I am. And I'm working on getting my second mic. Got to get my bread up, but I'm working on getting a second mic. And as soon as I get a second mic, I want to get a guest. That's really the only reason I haven't. I have a friend in mind. We've talked about it a little bit. But I think, as soon as I can get that second mic, I want to get a guest on here. So that's the plan. That's the game plan. I don't know if that's going to be next week. I don't think so. I think next week will be solo. Probably the week after that. And then on episode, I want to say 8, 9, maybe even for the 10th special, we'll have a guest on here. And I think that's where y'all will really get to see me thrive. I'm more so funny, more loose, kind of more, So thank y'all for watching. I appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. Y'all have a good one. I'm out.